We're still on crimes against property. So the last portion ano siya ato ang crimes against property ha. And starting from Article 319, chattel mortgage na siya. Removal, sale or pledge of mortgage property. The penalty of arresto mayor or a fine amounting to twice the value of the property shall be imposed upon 1. Any person who shall knowingly remove any personal property mortgage under a chattel mortgage law to any province or city other than the one in which it was located at the time of the execution of the mortgage, without the written consent of the mortgagee or his executors, administrators, or assigns. Any mortgagor who shall sell or pledge personal property already pledged, or any part thereof under the terms of the chattel mortgage law, without the consent of the mortgagee, written on the back of the mortgage, and noted in the record thereof in the office of the Register of Deeds of the province where such property is located. But naman yung class, kaniya klase nga transaction is actually the sale of by installment of appliances or motorcycles or any other chattel mortgage, chattel, not necessarily mortgage, any other personal properties, those properties that can be transferred from one place to another. Like specifically, for example, ang pinaka-rampant yun nga transaction is kanang mga appliances. Appliance store na siya. So when you buy an appliance store, specifically kung dili ka kapalit og cash sa appliance na imong gusto, you would want credit, no? Utangon nimo appliance na ihatagan ka. But then again, nanding ginatawa OCI, credit investigation, no? Once makapasar ka sa ilang credit investigation, you will be given the item as well as the terms of which you have to pay it monthly for several years or several months. So you will be executing sa date of sale. Muna ang mga standard ng mga dokumento dito. Ay mga fine prints dito sa mga date of sale nila. You also have to execute promissory note. Promissory note that once na dili mo bayaran, you have to pay it. Kung dili mo bayaran, then you have to be exacted a penalty or kada may interest gani sa promiso sa utang nimo. Under another document that you will sign is this chattel mortgage agreement. Tawag chattel mortgage. And chattel mortgage man god, mura nga kanang niutang ka nya tapos imuha na ang property, no? Tapos imo ang i-print na ang property, mo na ang chattel mortgage. Well, you are actually buying the property, but then again, when pag napalitan na nimo siya, imuha na ng property, but since nangutang man ka sa imuhang ipambayad sa property, imo na po i-print na balik ang property nga imuhang kipalit. Nga good. So naka-secure siya of the property. So once magbayad ka, bayad, wala problema kung bayaran nimo na siya up to date every month na mag-due, bayaran tayo nimo, wala problema. But usually sa chattel mortgage, na nakabutang dito, naka-mention niya as a chattel mortgage sa imong promissory note. Kan chattel mortgage man good, secondary contract mo gani siya. Secondary contract, secondary and accessory contract, such that dili na siya mo exist kung wala siya primary contract. And the primary contract there is the contract of loan. Ang contract of loan dira katong imuhang gi-execute nga promissory note. That's the evidence of your contract of loan with the appliance store nga imong gipalitan. Now, usa sa mga conditions dito sa gi-mention mga mortgage ang promissory note. Usa sa mga condition diya sa chattel mortgage. Paminawa, this is very important kay mag-experience ba mo ani if not through you sa imong mga parents nangutaw mga appliances, ma-experience niyo ni ma-feel ninyo ang mga tawag ani, mga difficulties nga na-encounter sa inyong mga parents once na ay mga bulan nga dili sila kabayad, and then there is such a danger or fear of the times when if you cannot really pay your appliance na giutang nimo pwede bawion anytime sa store. In fact, that is one of the conditions dito sa chattel mortgage na ginapirmahan sa nakautang, that whenever at least 2 or more installments wala nila mabayaran, i-repossess nila ang property. I-repossess sa appliance store ang property, and then release nimo, so of course kung mabayaran niyo. But that repossession is very, very crucial, no? And the repossession is very crucial because usapon sa mga conditions dito sa chattel mortgage ngayon mong impirmahan nga sa kung mangutang ka is that you don't remove the chattel or the item from the place for which you originally the appliance store originally deliver it to you sa iyong place yun. Diliginin mo siya i-remove dito because the moment na i-repossess sa appliance store, dito lang yapon nila balikan. Okay, that's very crucial, very important. Very important na provisions na siya sa chattel mortgage because by the time madili ka kabayad tapos i-repossess sa appliance store ang imuhang atong item, unya pag adto sa taga appliance store dito sa lugar for which they are expecting that the item should be there when they come to repossess that item, tapos pag adto nito wala dito, the person who loaned or incurred the signed the chattel mortgage could be liable for this other kinds of estafa. Kani under Article 3319, no? Removal, sale, or pledge of mortgage property. Aresto mayor ba ang fine, ang penalty? And a fine amounting to twice the value of the property shall be imposed. So, aside sa penalty nga imprisonment, fine amounting to twice the value of the property. So, very, very important knowledge for you on this, guys, because everyday experience na to ni sa mga gusto ng utang television set, utang taog kanang tawag ani furniture, utang taog refrigerator, utang taog para magamit sa kusina, television, utang tag aparador, daghang tag utangon. So, that's by installment. Mo ni ang pinaka-crucial nga provisions dito. Because if you will remove the items from the place for which it has to be expected to be there when the appliance store will come back and repossess the property, wala dito, then you will be charged with Article 319. You will be a criminal, and then so pwede ka ma-arrest, no? Pwede ka ipa-aresto, priso ka until such time nga maka-put up ka bail. So take note of this particular provision. Aside sa i-remove nimo, number one, i-remove, no? Ay kaduha, imo ibaligya. I-pledge nimo, imo po ibaligya, i-pledge nimo, or any part thereof without the consent of the mortgagee, then you will also be liable under this Article 319. Okay, any questions so far? Nakasabot po sa akong explanation ani sa chattel mortgage. Ang purpose sa paragraph 1 of the purpose of Article 319, paragraph 1 is the protection of the mortgagee who should be able to have a ready access to and easy reach of the property subject of the mortgage. Ano ang pinaka-purpose aning Article 319? Is a third person who removed the property to another province knowing it to have been mortgaged under chattel mortgage law liable under this article? The answer is yes. The offender is any person who shall knowingly remove the mortgaged personal property to another province or city without the written consent of the mortgagee. Okay, so take note of that, ha. So namoy ka konsabo nga ipa-remove nimo nito, gibaligya nimo nito. Wala gibaligya pero gikuha gidala, wala nagibutang dito sa lugar nga dapat expect nga naa dito, then a case could be filed against you. Dili pa. Hantod maimpas sila sa ipa-impas sila nimo. Kung maimpas na nimo, wala problema. Impas na nimo sa pag dili pa ma-release. Pa-impas na nimo, wala na problema na. Pwede nimo ibaligya, pwede nimo i-transfer. As long as nana ka sa full resibo nga full payment na ka. Any mortgagor lang man ang kabutan rin who shall sell or pledge personal property already pledged or any part thereof under terms of chattel mortgage so without the consent of mortgagee, liable ang mortgagor dere. And there's a number 1 kay any person who shall knowingly remove any personal property. Knowingly remove any personal property mortgage under a chattel mortgage law. So kung gipalit niya karon sa third person gipalit niya kabalo siya naka-chattel pa lang siya, tapos iyang gikuha diha sa lugar gipalit niya sila, liable siya sa number 1. Silang duha sa katong tag-iya sa property. Katong mortgagor liable sa number 2. Ang katong isa nga nakuha gidala niya, kung ang element ana is knowingly remove any personal property under chattel mortgage law. Of course, di man mo basta-basta ibaligya kung walay papilis na. And then ang katong mortgagor, the only paper nga he can show dito sa iyang gibaligyaan is katong mga dokumento gikan dito sa chattel mortgage isa nito. So once ma-show ni mo ang chattel mortgage, he would now be deemed to have knowingly remove personal property kung iyang kwaon dito. He will now be deemed to have knowingly noticed to have knowledge of the mortgage under the chattel mortgage law of that particular property, and if he has knowledge of that and he removed the property despite the provisions under this particular law, he will be liable under paragraph 1, article 319. Para effective kung ikaw ang nagpa-mortgage, nagadawat og pautang, para protected ka, imo na panutarize ng chattel mortgage sa inyong gipirmahan, tapos pa-register din mo na sa Register of Deeds, diba? Sa kuan sa article 319, ay nakabutan diri og Register of Deeds. Pa-register mo na siya, no? There's a second paragraph. At the back of the mortgage and noted on the recorder of in the office of the Register of Deeds of the province where such property is located. So para protected ka nga nagapautang, imo na siya i-register sa Register of Deeds para ma-protected ka under this particular law. Pwede nimo ma-file ang kaso against that particular person. Ikaw nga nangutang, bantay ka kag kapirma ka chattel mortgage, liable jud ka diri. Okay, I hope na naka-understand ka niya. Very important maguna siya sa mga appliances nga ginabaligya nagpautang. Let's go to honor provision. Arson and other crimes involving destruction. Article 320 to 326 thus be repealed or amended by Presidential Decree number 1613. Nature of destructive arson is distinguished from simple arson by the degree of perversity or viciousness of the criminal offender. Acts committed under Article 320 of the Revised Penal Code constituting destructive arsons are characterized as heinous crimes for being grievous, odious, and hateful offenses, and which by reason of their inherent or manifest wickedness, viciousness, atrocity, and perversity are repugnant and outrageous to the common standards and norms of decency and morality in a just, civilized, and ordered society. On the other hand, acts committed under PD number 1613, so amending the law on arson. Muna karon natong discussion sa arson ha. Section 1, arson. Any person who burns or sets fire to the property of another shall be punished by prison mayor. The same penalty shall be imposed when a person sets fire to his own property. So not necessarily live imong property or live property imong gisunog, pwede po imong property lang. Sa pag wala kay tuyo nga imong basta wala kay tuyo nga i-damage imong property sa uban, imong walang property imong ginasunog. But then that's again an arson under this particular Presidential Decree 1613, no? Same penalty shall be imposed when a person sets fire to his own property under circumstances which expose to danger the life or property of another. Destructive arson, the penalty of reclusion temporal and maximum period to reclusion perpetua shall be imposed if the property burned is any of the following. 1. Any ammunition factory and other establishment where explosives, inflammable, or combustible materials are stored. 2. Any archive, museum, whether public or private, or any edifice devoted to culture, education, or social services. 3. Any church or place of worship or other building where people usually assemble. 4. Any train, airplane, or any aircraft, vessel or watercraft, or conveyance for transportation of persons or property. 5. Any building where evidence is kept for use in any legislative, judicial, administrative, or other official proceeding. 6. Any hospital, hotel, dormitory, lodging house, housing tenement, shopping center, public or private market, theater or movie house, or any similar place or building. 7. Any building, whether used as a dwelling or not, situated in a populated or congested area. So, that's it. Mga pinaka-highlight dito ka na number 7, any building basta situated lang sa populated or congested area. Other cases of arson, the penalty of reclusion temporal to reclusion perpetua shall be imposed if the property burned is any of the following. 1. Any building used as offices of the government or any of its agencies. 2. Any inhabited house or dwelling. 3. Any industrial establishment, shipyard, oil well, or mine shaft, platform, or tunnel. 4. Any plantation, farm, pasture land, growing crop, grain field, or orchard, bamboo grove, or forest. 5. Any rice mill, sugar mill, cane mill or mill central, and any railway or bus station, airport, wharf, or warehouse. Section 4. Special aggravating circumstances in arson. The penalty in any case of arson shall be imposed in its maximum period. Basta na aggravating circumstance, because sa medium period na siya, maato na siya sa maximum period. If committed with intent to gain. Second, if committed for the benefit of another. Third, if the offender is motivated by spite or hatred towards the owner or occupant of the property burned. 4. If committed by a syndicate. The offense is committed by a syndicate if it is planned or carried out by a group of 3 or more persons. A syndicate, 3 or more na siya. Where death results from arson. If by reason of or on the occasion of arson, death results, the penalty of reclusion perpetua to death shall be imposed. Prima facie evidence of arson. Any of the following circumstances shall constitute prima facie evidence of arson. If the fire started simultaneously in more than one part of the building or establishment. If substantial amount of flammable substances or materials are stored within the building, not of the offender, nor for household use. If gasoline, kerosene, petroleum, or other flammable or combustible substances or materials soaked therewith or containers thereof, or any mechanical, electrical, chemical, or electronic contrivance designed to start a fire, or ashes or traces of any of the foregoing are found in the ruins or premises of the burned building or property. If the building or property is insured for substantially more than its actual value at the time of the issuance of the policy. If during the lifetime of the corresponding fire insurance policy, more than 2 fires have occurred in the same or other premises owned or under the control of the offender or insured. If shortly before the fire, a substantial portion of the effects insured and stored in a building or property had been withdrawn from the premises except in the ordinary course of business. If a demand for money or other valuable consideration was made before the fire in exchange for the desistance of the offender or for the safety of the person or property of the victim. Additional na penalty na po na siya. Grabe ang Section 5, reclusion perpetua to death na siya. Muna siya ang evidence sa arson. Conspiracy to commit arson. Conspiracy to commit arson shall be punished by person mayor in its minimum period. Dili na siya commit ang arson na conspiracy, nagsabot-sabot lang, nag-agree sila, then that is penalized by itself, no? Confiscation of object of arson. The building which is the object of arson, including the land on which it is situated, shall be confiscated and is treated to the state unless the owner thereof can prove that he has no participation in or nor knowledge of such arson despite the exercise of due diligence on his particle. So if you are the owner of the building and you can prove that you are not the one responsible for the arson committed, then it will be returned to you. Otherwise, if you are the one who commits the arson, the building, the land, will be is cheated in the favor of the government. So maning is cheated ang tawag ha. Is cheated in favor of the government, no? To the state. Is cheated, confiscated, and is cheated to. This is a proceeding actually, the proceeding for which the private property is transferred to public property ownership. Dili na siya private, kundi sa gobyerno na makapanag-iani. Is cheat na siya. Kanaganing mga tao nga walay mga parenti, walay mga sumusunod, mga matay na lang, napa sila mga properties, walay mo claim sa ilang mga properties, walay mga heirs. That's the candidate for, those properties are candidates for is-cheat in favor of the government. Is-cheat sila, dapat na ay mga parenti mo claim para ma-turn over sa ilang properties. Otherwise, it will be the government that will be the owner of those properties. The provisions of Articles 320 to 326-B of the Revised Penal Code and all laws, executive orders, rules, and regulations or parts thereof inconsistent with the provisions of this decree are hereby repealed or amended accordingly. Section 10. Effectivity. This decree shall take effect immediately upon publication thereof at least once in a newspaper of general circulation. Done in the City of Manila this 7th day of March 1979. So muna siya ang pa-execute ani nga balaod, no, sa article Presidential Decree 1613. 1979 pa rin siya nga balaod. I don't know when was this being published. After the publication, immediately it has taken effect until karon. What is arson? It is defined as the malicious destruction of property by fire. And the kinds of arsons are 1. Simple arson, 2. Destructive arson, and other cases of arson. And there are attempted, there are frustrated, there are consummated arsons. In attempted arson, it is not necessary that there be fire. No? There's no complex crime of arson with homicide. Under Presidential Decree number 1613 provides that if by reason of or on the occasion of arson death results, the penalty of reclusion perpetua to death shall be imposed. The crime of homicide is absorbed. So it's a destructive arson. No? Let's go to malicious mischief. Malicious mischief is the willful damaging of another's property for the sake of causing damage due to hate, revenge, or other evil motive. At to ka sa maglabay ka sa mga subdivision, imo ang sikat-sikaran, pabunal-bunalan imo ang kural, maguba ang kural, you will be liable for malicious mischief. What are the crimes classified as malicious mischief? Special cases of malicious mischief, other mischiefs, damages, and obstruction to means of communication, destroying or damaging statues, public monuments, or paintings. Who are liable for malicious mischief? Any person who shall deliberately cause to the property of another any damage not falling within the terms of the next preceding chapter, like arson and robbery and theft, di ba? And estafa, shall be guilty of malicious mischief. The elements are that the offender deliberately caused damage to the property of another, that such act does not constitute arson or other crimes involving destruction, that the act of damaging another's property be committed merely for the sake of damaging it. Third element presupposes that the offender acted due to hate, revenge, or other evil motive. Basta lang sulani mo mang damage, then you are liable for malicious mischief. If there was no malice in causing the damage, walay malice pasabot, walay hate, walay revenge, walay other evil motive, wala na siya malice. So if there's no malice, only civil liability will be meted against the particular person. Article 328, special cases of malicious mischief. Any person who shall cause damage to obstruct the performance of public functions, or using any poisonous or corrosive substance, or spreading any infection or contagion among cattle, or who causes damage to the property of the National Museum or National Library, or to any archive or registry, waterworks, road, promenade, or any other thing used in common by the public, shall be punished by prison correctional in its minimum and medium periods if the value of the damage caused exceeds 1,000 pesos. By arresto mayor if such value does not exceed the above mentioned amount but is over 200 pesos, and by arresto minor if such value does not exceed 200 pesos. Other mischief. The mischiefs included in the next preceding article shall be punished by arresto mayor in its medium and maximum periods if the value of the damage caused exceeds 1,000 pesos, by arresto mayor in its minimum and medium periods if such value is over 200 pesos but does not exceed 1,000 pesos, and by arresto minor or fine of not less than the value of the damage caused and not more than 200 pesos if the amount involved does not exceed 200 pesos or cannot be estimated. So karon mga panahon na wala na 200 pesos nga pwede nimo i-damage, no, nga liable ka kay bayaran lang man nimo 200 pesos kamay naman lang na pwede na mo i-arigluhon. Siguro na-increase na ni siya nga number sa nga amount. Killing cows of another as an act of revenge. The cows of B caused destruction to the plants of A as an act of revenge. A and his tenants killed said cows. The crime being committed out of hate and revenge is that of malicious mischief, penalized in Article 329, Paragraph 3, other kinds of malicious mischief. I was reminded of the event that transpired when I was young, involving my mother, no. Sa una mga panahon sa Mungkayo. I was living in Mungkayo, sa bukid, no. And siyempre, na yung mga silingan sa likod sa balay, umahan, dako to nga farm lot. But sa masilingan na mo, na yung mga nagbuhig baboy, nagbuhig ka ng mga pato, ano ba? So of course, kung mananong ka, nagtanong man itong kamuti ako mama nito sa farm lot naman sa likod. Kada buntag, sayog mata ako mama, hindi ko kamata, hindi ko uban sa iya. Sila na mag-impisa dito sa kamutihan, magkuhag sagbot, magbukal-bukal sa mga balas, ano ba, buntag sayo. And then kung dili ko tapulan, tabangan ako siya. And then one time, akong mama, pag mata niyo sayo pa kayo sa buntag, tingala siya, giungad-ungad man ang kanang umahan. So tanatay na bunga kamuti ba? Pwede na hapit na ma-harvest sa kamuti. Giungad-ungad sa baboy. So gitabot gikuan bukaw sa mama. Hu bu bu bu. Gibantayan yun niya tapos giwarningan niya mo silingan ta iya nga. Ug gigaya nimo ko anon, good gitaraw ko pa istorya. Higta na palihog ni yung baboy kay kauno na akong kamutihan sa likod. At least na-warn sila, no? Tapos mga pila ka adlaw kay naamang gihapon. Nadala ng sundang akong mama ato ba. Tigbaso biton sa akong mama katong baboy basta diri sa likod sa baboy kanang sa may lubot gani. At tigbas buhi pa ang baboy pero nabuhi pa gihapon pero alagi. Naputol siguro to yang kanang sa likod kay aginod naman siya maglakaw pero sagit sa baboy tapos siyempre nag-away siya sa silingan nganong itigbas pero nag-ingon akong mama sige isukay akong mama basta sinumdangay na gani isukay akong mama lagi basta sinumdangay lagi na basta dili ang silingan niya akong tao niya lalaki pa jud mo yung away sa iya gikuan sila gipacify siya sa barangay na pacify na then wala kang pabayad akong mama kay ingon akong mama giwarning man ako na sila tapos wala man sila pato buhian magyapon ng baboy sumato nga after ato kasabot pa siguro tong taiya sa baboy pero hadlukan na ako ato akong mama nag-raise na kaya akong mama gusto nagpatay ba naliwat pa siguro ko sa mama basta minana gani mawala ng panimot kanang masuko na gani kayo di na ko kakuha ng reason po basta paano ba mo nang flare kayo talag sarap po noon pero ako mura gina ako siguro na naliwat ko sa mama kay kato nga panahon na nakita din ako mga pertig suga itigbas niya ang baboy basta luya sa baboy lagi kami piting hadluka na mo so mama suga na wala na ko ka malay atong giihaw basta kato lang mga particular nga na conflict akong na remember kung giihaw I don't know siguro nakakaon po siya ato siguro ipag-ihaw ato eventually mag namatay man yata itong baboy but katulad ko mga remember in connection with this particular nga discussion nato no kuyawan jud ko ato anyway 330 damage and obstruction to means of communication the penalty of prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods shall be imposed upon any person who shall damage any railway telegraph or telephone lines. If the damage shall result in any derailment of cars, collision, or other accident, the penalty of prison mayor shall be imposed without prejudice to the criminal liability of the offender for the other consequences of his criminal act. So, kung na mamatay, napagin siya homicide, no? For the purpose of the provisions of this article, the electric wires, traction cables, signal system, and other things pertaining to railways shall be deemed to constitute an integral part of a railway system. Because kung isa ana imong i-destroy then dili na siya mag-function that would now cause the derailment on lack of communication sa train gani na travel so indeed you will be liable for that damage. Article 331 destroying or damaging statues public monuments or paintings. Any person who shall destroy or damage statues or any other useful or ornamental public monuments shall suffer the penalty of arresto mayor in its medium period to prison correctional in its minimum period. Any person who shall destroy or damage any useful or ornamental painting of a public nature shall suffer the penalty of arresto minor or a fine not exceeding 200 pesos or both such fine and imprisonment in the discretion of the court. Exemption from criminal liability in crimes against property. Very important niya na may exemption dire ha. Persons exempt from criminal liability. No criminal but only civil liability shall result from commission of the crime of theft, swindling, or malicious mischief committed or caused mutually by the following persons: spouses, asawa, mag-asawa, ascendants, mama, papa, lolo, lula, and descendants, anak o mga apo, or relatives by affinity in the same line. Relatives by affinity in the same line, pababa, no? Ascendants and descendants, no? By affinity in the same line. Affinity meaning sa tawag din sa pagkasal. Affinity, relatives by affinity sa kasal. The widowed spouse with respect to the property which belongs to the deceased spouse before the same shall have passed into the possession of another. Brothers and sisters and brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law if living together. So magkinawa tayo mo dira, wala may mga criminal liability, civil liability lang. The exemption established by this article shall not be applicable to strangers participating in the commission of the crime. So kung conspiracy na it happens na ang brothers and sisters kauban sa conspirators, ang brothers and sisters walay liability, criminal liability, pero kakauban nila nga nag-conspire sa ilaha, na liability. They will be liable for theft or robbery or whatsoever. A theft, swindling, robbery, dili pwede, wala abot ang robbery. Theft, swindling, or malicious mischief. Muna ang involved sa exemption. Theft, swindling, or malicious mischief.